Hello, and welcome to another match of the Ro16 tournament into the round of 16. Of course, continuing on from our batch of matches from earlier, finally getting into, I'd say, one of the more exciting matches. This match is one that I am very excited to kind of see. I mean, these are two names that most people probably are really familiar with. Silhoueska Elze and Mystiik. Some very interesting players, so it's going to be really fun to kind of see how both these players kind of do in the match and the results just in general. But we can get into the maps. But here we go. And it looks like Elze winning the Protect. And going to Protect LN1, our coordination pick. But following up that Protect is going to be Mystiik's pick to kind of protect. And looks like we might be seeing a Ro16 Protect, which could be a very interesting one. But first, into our bans is going to be Mystiik. I mean, what do you really ban here? I mean, I guess LN3, that does make a little bit of sense. But it is Elze's ban, and I mean, there's so much to kind of ban, just in general. I mean, when you're kind of in a spot within both of these players, I mean, what do you really ban besides, I mean, the obvious, I mean, maybe Ellen and Rice Math. I mean, hybrids are kind of a little bit, I would say, a risky pick, just from both players in general. I mean, these could kind of be potentially a bit of a more last resort type of pick. It looks like we'll be seeing a Ro16 ban. A pretty interesting one, but it is a bit of a more simpler map, very straightforward one, so I guess it could make a little bit of sense in this context. But we're immediately going into a Hybrid 3 pick. A really interesting one. I mean, I wasn't really expecting this. I mean, this is in the category of kind of riskier maps. I mean, going into a little bit of a more technical hybrid, I mean, this could kind of spell out what to kind of expect maybe in some of these picks, just because of this not being a little bit technical, like the name implies. I mean, this could maybe potentially follow up with a potential Ro16 pick, maybe coming from either player. But here we go. Moving on into this first pick. I mean, there's so much to kind of expect here. I mean, you can't really say that one person has a clear advantage in this map in general. I mean, both players being fairly well-rounded. I mean, as we start off though, I mean, Mystiik was a kind of early miss though, which could be very bad especially this early on into the match, but it could potentially just be nerves maybe. Letting that miss out very early on could be very effective in terms of later picks, but we'll kind of have to wait and see how this does go. I mean, as we go through though, Silhoueska Elze holding a very strong 99.7. I mean, Mystiik not doing too bad either. I mean, holding fairly good accuracy even despite the miss from earlier. I mean, a 10,000 lead though, I mean, what can you really do in a situation like this but only hope that your opponent gets a miss? Especially as we kind of do get into this break part. I mean, there's still a lot to kind of get through within this map. But here we go, as we are getting into the last pretty much main part of this map. I mean, things are going to ramp up in terms of difficulty a lot more than they were just a minute ago. But here we go, back into this part. I mean, you're going to see a lot more mini jacks kind of being used later on. I mean, a little bit kind of simpler area for now, but as we do progress, things will get harder. Misses will be more prominent if we see any. I mean, the first like 90% of this map is really fair to kind of just combo, but especially as we get into this ending, it's so easy to choke on. I mean, we've been seeing time and time players just choke left and right at the very end. So we'll have to kind of see if any of these players do choke, but a choke coming from Mystiik and Silhoueska Elze will be getting that first point, bringing them to their first point within the match. I mean, it is their pick as well. I mean, you have to somewhat expect that when kind of going into something like this, but really good scores just coming from both players in general. But here we go into the next pick, and looks like we'll be going into our mixed pick, May. I mean, a pretty interesting pick to kind of go into. But I mean, we'll have to really wait and see how this map does treat both these players. I mean, this map is also fairly easy to choke on. But here we go, going into this pick. I mean, there's a lot to kind of expect. I mean, you have to expect maybe one person to at least get a miss, or to maybe drop a few grades here and there, especially with the speed sections that kind of come up. But time will only tell as we are getting through this beginning. I mean, both these players tied pretty much evenly. I mean, as we get through this first section, I mean, you start to see a little bit of a divide, if nothing at all. I mean, so far you do see a very slight lead coming from Silhoueska Elze, but as we kind of get into a little bit of a more speedier section, you have to wonder if that lead will kind of sway in favor of one person. I mean, both players dropping a little bit of accuracy within that part. But here we go, as we do get into the break section, Mystiik with a very slight lead. I mean, this match is not far by any means. Things could sway very easily, especially as we do get into this second half of the map where things are going to become a lot easier to choke. And here we go, as we do get into this part, you will start to see some split throws. Could be very easy to choke the transitions between all of these different patterns that come at you all at once. And as we do get through things are so close right now. This lead really starts to go in advantage of Silhoueska Elze. I mean, a very slight one, but it's still going over. I mean, both these players performing so good, but Mystiik getting a miss at the near the very end. I mean, despite that miss though, the accuracy is still really high. But, I mean, there isn't really much that can happen, especially with this ending right here. And Silhoueska Elze will be taking the second point, a break point as well. I mean, the ratios are so close. I mean, it was only the matter of that miss that really took things apart. I mean, it is Silhoueska Elze's pick now. It looks like we'll be going into Hybrid too. I mean, a little bit of an interesting pick. Well, we'll kind of have to see how this does go. I mean, from what we saw in Hybrid 3, this could potentially still go in Elze's favor, but if we see a miss come from Elze though, I mean, it could very easily switch in the side of Mystiik. I mean, we saw it within the last map. The ratios are so close, especially when it kind of gets into more simpler maps, or just maps in general that are just really close in difficulty. But here we go, I mean, even this beginning part where you would maybe see a little bit of an outlier in accuracy, potentially from first Znow. I mean, you see these players just really at it. But here we go, as things slowly build up just ever so slightly. I mean, they're still so even. And especially as things will get a little bit more kind of consistent throughout. I mean, you can't really expect there to be crazy misses or just a crazy kind of like accuracy drop. I mean, especially here, I mean, we see the scores like really consistent. Both these players staying really strong. Mystiik's just gonna have to really hope that they're able to kind of keep this consistency and hopefully not drop a miss at the end. I mean, we've been seeing it within the first two maps. This could be a huge factor in a match like this, so it is understandable to see a few drops here and there. But here we go, as we are pushing into a little bit of a more intense and faster section, we will have to kind of wait and see how things go. I mean, looking at things so far, Elze has a very, very slight lead, but it does look like things are starting to shift ever so slightly. It's so difficult to really tell, especially in a map like this, where things stay rather consistent. Both these players are able to hit it phenomenally. I mean, this difference in accuracy is so little. I mean, you see it right here, only 0.01 difference. Client seeming to slip up. So it looks like the client slipping up very end, but it would go to Silhoueska Elze. But it looks like we'll be seeing the first Protect within the match being chosen. Ro16. But here we go, going into our Rice 6, our Jack pick. I mean, Mystiik's Protect, you have to expect them to be very confident in a map like this. I mean, things are just tied, basically. I mean, you start to see this kind of lead just really be in the middle from time to time, but as we kind of move forward, looks like Mystiik was an ever so slight lead in terms of accuracy. I mean, as we progress through this, Mystiik's still holding a very high 99.9, reaching that midway mark. Silhoueska is looking to be having a little bit of trouble keeping up with these jacks, at least in the terms of accuracy. I mean, Mystiik holding it really strong. I mean, it makes sense as to why Mystiik would protect a map like this. I mean, a map that is kind of a little bit in the stranger side of jacks, but not completely too strange. It definitely is a pick where, if you are really comfortable with jacks, this could easily be a good pick. A miss coming from Silhoueska Elze as we kind of reach the next breakpoint. Another one coming in as we reach the break section. I mean, there isn't really much that Silhoueska Elze can really do, especially with how consistent Mystiik has been playing through this map. I mean, even if Mystiik does get a miss at the very end potentially, I mean, there's still so much cushioning for them to kind of drop a miss or two. I mean, especially with that accuracy difference. You start to see the accuracy drop a little bit though, from both players. Definitely does kind of go to show the kind of difficulty that this map can bring. But it will be going in favor of Mystiik, bringing them to their first point within this match. I mean, really good scores from both players. We are going into the SP map. It's gonna be interesting to see how this goes. I mean, Silhoueska Elze being a really proficient SV player, but I mean, we've been seeing Mystiik also being really good within the SV department, getting first place within round of 32 leaderboards.
Every day I know that I miss you. Every hour, every minute that I breathe.
Here we go, as we are getting through this map. I mean, starting off, you do see a little bit of an accuracy difference coming from both these players. And both these players performing really well, but I mean, Silhoueska Elze with 99.8, pretty high accuracy, but immediately dropping a lot upon these teleports. And as we continue on, I mean, both these players doing really well. It's just only the fact that this map, I mean, getting a few grades is going to really destroy your accuracy. I mean, you already see, I mean, with Silhoueska Elze dropped from 99.8 into that 99.5 range really fast, but staying consistent there, I mean, it really goes to kind of show. This coming from Mystiik as we approach this ending section. Definitely going to do a lot of damage, especially as, I mean, it is an SV map. There are less nodes than a lot of these other maps. I mean, especially as we get through later on. And another miss coming from Mystiik though, but that will bring the point towards Silhoueska Elze. A very high score as well. I mean, both these players doing really well. But what can you really do against a score like that? Only 3 grades. But I mean, it is Mystiik's pick. I mean, there's a lot of kind of room to choose. I mean, especially with what we saw from Ro16. Looks like we'll be going into Ro16, our speed pick. Kind of an interesting pick. I mean, a map like this, I would think would maybe be avoided, at least from Mystiik, seeing how Ro4 went. I mean, seeing what we see from the bans and kind of how Ro6 went, I would think Ro5 could potentially be a pick that Mystiik goes for, but we'll kind of have to wait and see how this does go. But here we go, starting off in very, very simple patterns, but things will slowly get into kind of more speedy sections. I mean, it is Ro1, you do have to kind of expect that when it comes to these speed maps. I mean, as we're getting through this, I mean, Elze having a little bit of an accuracy drop. I mean, this map makes sense to drop at least a good amount of accuracy, but you really start to see it within Elze's accuracy. Mystiik's still holding a fairly good score. So near a 99.8, I mean, flickering around low and below that. And if we get through these speed sections, I mean, it looks like Elze having just a little bit of trouble trying to kind of keep up in terms of accuracy. Still being able to hit these patterns fairly good. It's just that accuracy is definitely taking a little bit of a toll. A miss coming from Mystiik though, and a huge accuracy drop, but a miss coming from Silhoueska Elze as well. Things are going to switch back immediately in favor of Mystiik. Just as he thought that things might have been over, they immediately switch. I mean, we'll have to see if any of these players do this. I mean, this point will be going in favor of Mystiik. I mean, just as he thought that things would immediately switch up. But I mean, it is Elze's pick. So I mean, anything really is on the table. I mean, we haven't seen any of the LNs, but there's also still Hybrid 1. Seeing Ro5 though. here we go, going into Rise 5, our stamina pick. A kind of interesting pick coming from Silhoueska Elze. I mean, this is a pick that I would think favors Mystiik a little bit more. Early miss though coming from Silhoueska Elze. Definitely not going to be helping them, especially with a little bit of an accuracy drop compared to Mystiik. But I mean, things are technically possible to kind of switch around. I mean, we saw within the last map, things almost switched around. So, do have to wait and see. But as things are going to start getting more intense, it's very possible for things to shift back up. As we are kind of getting through these kind of truly areas, I mean, Mystiik's still holding a pretty good FC, but it's just the accuracy that's really starting to make a very, very slight difference. I mean, we'll have to see if it's possible for us to make a comeback within this map. I mean, especially with how the accuracies have been kind of going, it technically is possible. It's only really a matter of time depending on how these kind of next few sections go. Another miss coming from Silhoueska Elze, so it's definitely not going to be what they're wanting, especially as things were really starting to somewhat shift into their favor. Albeit still in the favor of Mystiik. And enormous coming right there. It's definitely going to seal the deal if Silhoueska Elze did want to get that point. But the point will be going to Mystiik. I mean, it is going to matter a lot what Mystiik does choose next. I mean, 1 point and they are going to tiebreaker, so definitely a really important pick here. I mean, it is their last pick as well. I mean, looking at things, I mean, Rise 3 could potentially be one way to go. But here we go, I mean, going into Rise 3. I mean, a pretty good pick coming from Mystiik though, especially with how things have been really going. But here we go, going into this next pick, our tech pick, and the final pick from these regular picks. We'll really have to kind of wait and see how things go. here we go. Gonna be a very interesting pick. I mean, really tricky, not only in terms of accuracy, but just in terms of patterning as well. If they're going through things, I mean, an ever so slight lead being presented, but as soon as we get into these more technical patterns, things are going to already kind of switch up and start to kind of fight between these two. It is merely just a tug of war between who can keep the lead for the longest and who's really able to outcome through all of these really funky patterns and just tricky jacks in general. And that's kind of from Silhoueska Elze, though. Definitely not what they're going to want to see, I mean, especially as this is Mystiik's pick. I mean, definitely a pick where you have to be really careful. But here we go, as we do get into the break part. I mean, one miss could really change things. But as we do get into the second half, we'll have to see if a miss comes from either player. But as we get through this part, I mean, Jack's grace notes, everything you can think of tech-wise, really starts to kind of be put into play here. I mean, just a tenth of a percent. I mean, that lead's really starting to kind of shrink, especially with Silhoueska Elze starting to kind of build up a little bit of accuracy. Just one miss can easily sway things over. And that one miss coming in, but another miss coming from Elze. But with that, it does look like we'll be going into tiebreaker. Just when you think things are over, they just switch around. Here we go, though. I mean, what do you do in this situation, though? Definitely going to be a very interesting map to see be put into play. But here we go, moving into this map very shortly. But here we go, as MP Star Command comes in. Both these players have to be extremely nervous now. I mean, in a situation like this, it is only the matter of kind of time to see who does prevail and who does make it into the winners quarterfinals. But here we go, starting us off. I mean, you do see a lot more simpler patterns be put into play, but things will quickly switch up as you only just get just a little bit of time to kind of get through this build up. Things could easily switch between these two players. I mean, especially with the kind of consistency that we've been seeing from both players. It does kind of bring a little bit of kind of worry into Elze's perspective, especially with the ending being a little bit harder than the Jack pick. And we did see Elze struggle just a little bit within that section, so if they're really able to kind of keep a hold within these kind of sections before that, then it's possible for them to really make it through. But an early miss coming from Mystiik, Silhoueska Elze is going to have to hope to stay extremely consistent throughout this map. While only 4 minutes, it is 4 minutes that does not stop at all. and things are only getting harder from here on out. Consistency is going to be crucial, especially for a map of this difficulty. You start to see the kind of introduction of these really strange elements, with these rice notes also being kind of put into play, adding up into so much of its difficulty. But Silhoueska is holding such a strong accuracy. Mystiik also doing just really good in general, but not able to kind of keep up with just the accuracy that Silhoueska is really able to hold. And as we get through this, I mean, more of these really strange elements to really trip up the accuracy of both players, both doing so well. You do start to see the Silhoueska get a little bit below that 99.7 mark, but you're gonna have to kind of wait and see if they're able to stay within that range. Another miss coming from Mystiik. It's definitely gonna help Silhoueska a lot, especially with the jack part kind of slowly but surely arriving throughout. But here we go, getting into more kind of complex parts within the map. I mean, a 13k lead from Silhoueska, but that lead can just easily be shifted all the way to the other side if not careful enough. I mean, you start to see Silhoueska start to drop just a little bit of accuracy. And as we are getting through this next section, I mean, you only get just a matter of time to rest until you're immediately put back into the spotlight, into really tricky patterns. But coming up into the jack section, we're gonna have to kind of wait and see how things go. So more of these really tricky patterns. I mean, both players handling it really well. Mystiik's starting to kind of build up that actually just a little bit, but those two misses coming from earlier definitely affecting them a good amount. And as things are getting closer, another miss coming from Mystiik, but here we go, slowly building up to the next area, into the jack section. Silhoueska is going to have to hold that consistency. Mystiik getting another miss. Silhoueska is really holding it into a part where you might have expected to see a miss already, but they're really putting it their all. I mean, especially as we are getting closer into the very end, still holding that combo, very high accuracy as well. I mean, there's not even anything you can really do in this situation. And Silhoueska holding combos throughout the entirety of this map. I mean, even despite the difference in points, I mean, this match was definitely a lot closer than it may seem. But with that, that does conclude tiebreaker. Silhoueska is going to take this point home. And moving on into the quarterfinals winners bracket as well. A really intense match. But that also does mean that Mystiik will be moving down into the losers bracket, into the losers quarterfinals. A really good performance coming from both these players. But what can you do, especially at a time where that combo, even for a 4-minute map, is still ridiculous. But for now, I mean, we do have a match coming up very shortly, so stay tuned for that one. But for now, I'm your commentator Znow, and I'll see you around.